We're live, Mayor.
Thank you. You are here, do we? Henry, you don't see Rob. Welcome to the regular meeting of Helotes City Council. It's August 14th, 2025. The time is 7 p.m. Please rise as we have our invocation given by City Administrator Henry Hayes, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Precious and Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all those that are gathered here, every person of responsibility and all the households represented. We ask, God, that you would be with us during this meeting, that you would allow our elected officials to make wise decisions, that they would have a healthy investigation of the materials and the responsibility that they are to carry on today. We thank you, Father, for the spirit of stewardship on tonight, so that all things could be considered in a proper and a healthy manner. We ask, God, that you would be with all of the city of Helotes, the professional staff, the residents, the elected officials, the citizens, and the business owners and visitors along the way. Let all things be done for your glory. We thank you and we bless you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Had the distinct pleasure of being asked by County Judge Sakai to give some opening remarks at the county budget meeting, which is happening right now at Our Lady Guadalupe. I have a lot of citizens over there interested in county budget, and had the opportunity to share some of the great advances the leadership in our city has made over the past years, and thankful that they're up here inquiring the opinions of people from Helotes. Those that don't know, Judge Sakai got his start being our DA many years ago. He was particularly thankful that I brought up the point that he prosecuted all their speeding tickets back then. But great, we have great representation on the county level with our Commissioner Moody, and appreciate all the work they're doing over there. This time we have citizens to be heard. We have anybody signed up online? No, just one here. Okay. When you're called up, please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Patrick McGowan.
Good afternoon. I'm Patrick McGowan. I live at 10902 Bar X Trail, and as you know, I'm very familiar with the city's financial position and attended both the budget workshops. In reading the 2026 budget, it's apparent that the mayor's budget continues to ignore the city's audited financial statements, auditor's reports, TML reports, and the city's own salary surveys. So today, my comments are directed specifically to the city council members. This budget has significant shortcomings, considering the millions of dollars the city has made and banked over the last 6 years, including the additional $1.5 million you're adding to the general fund this year, making this a source of embarrassment instead of pride. Although this is called the mayor's budget, he will soon be asking the city council to make it your budget. Before you vote, ask yourself, are you really proud of this budget? Because after September, you will own it, not the mayor. Ask yourself if you're proud that the city has over $12 million of unassigned cash in the general fund reserve, over $30 million in cash and investments, collecting over $1.1 million of annual interest, while the City of Helotes employees are underpaid. Ask yourself if you're proud that most citizens in the Hill Country and adjacent towns are able to pay their employees a competitive wage, but Helotes is unwilling and currently at the bottom of the pay scale. Can you honestly tell the employees and residents that this is the best you can do? If you're not going to be proud to own this budget, then you need to send it back to the mayor and tell him to do a better job and fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Looking for motion and second to approve consent agenda items number 3 and 4 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion.
Okay, motion by Sanders, second by,
Second.
Before we vote on it, can I at least say, I think one of the items in the consent agenda is the resignation of Mr. Alex Blue. And I think everybody here, most of the people in the audience, I know everybody up here, I know the mayor knows him really well as well. I don't know. He spent, what, almost 30 years volunteering for the city? A lot.
a lot. Do we have a final date?
Probably more now.
Probably more,
He
a
started
little
on
bit.
P and Z, then council, then back to P and Z.
So I just wanted to say, you know, on behalf of all of us up here that we're going to miss him. And me personally, you know that old E.F. Hutton commercial for you older folks? Some of those young firemen back there may not remember, but the commercial was, you know, when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. And I always listen to his perspective because he always had an interesting way to look at a scenario. And it was always worth listening to. So anyways, I just wanted to say that before we voted mayor.
Absolutely, I appreciate those comments. Alex Blue served on P&Z, he served as a council member. He's moving out of the area. He is a gentleman that had careful thoughts into everything, and the city has been well served by him. We look forward to honoring him tonight. We are accepting his resignation for moving out, but not enough could be said about Alex Blue. And wherever he is, hope he's watching, we appreciate you.
I hope to bring him back if he accepts so that we could honor him properly.
Absolutely. We'll look forward to that.
Great.
Okay, without any further conversation, all in favor of approving consent agenda items number 3 and 4 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. At this time, look for motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 5 as written.
I'll go ahead and make a motion, Mayor.
Motion by Sanders, second by,
I'll second.
okay, Russell. Have the distinct pleasure and honor of nominating Jaime Sandoval, who is here. If you'd like to step up to the podium, if you don't mind, introduce yourself. To serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission, Place 4, with a term expiring May 2027. If you don't mind, just state your name and how long you've been in Helotes and
Yeah, my name's Jaime Sandoval. Actually, I've been a Helotes resident officially for about 5 years now, but I lived in the area for a long time. And I've spent actually many times looking at some of these meetings and also planning and zoning committee meetings. And I remember Jen Sones came over one time to my house and said, "Hey, it sounds like you're like involved in the city. You should take a position." And then this year I said, "You know what? It's true. You know, let me go ahead and step up and, you know, because Helotes is a great city. I love it. And it's one of those things that I want to continue its tradition, continue what is the best, and carry a more stewardship of this position to everybody." So I thank you for you guys giving me the opportunity, and thank you for having me up here.
absolutely.
All right.
Free to ask questions if you like.
No, I just, like I said earlier,
Okay.
welcome and thank you for volunteering.
Oh, no, you're welcome.
Appreciate you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. You're welcome.
No, just really impressed with your real estate and residential construction background. That's going to bring a lot to the group.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, with no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 5 is written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At
Welcome.
this time, we have the presentation and discussion. We don't have action on this one, we just have discussion and direction.
Discussion of and.
There's one that could be roll call vote.
Yeah, so it'll be discussion first, Mayor, and then afterwards I can do the roll call vote for the proposed tax.
We already did a roll call, okay,
We'll need that for the notice.
for the notice, exactly. So we are going to need a motion in a second for item number 6 is written.
Do you want to do discussion first, and then,
Oh, we can have, either way, we're taking it as a motion, but sort we can have a discussion before the motion, but
Well, if I may, so the way that the item is written, it doesn't call for an actual number. And I don't know if y'all want to hear go through the presentation or.
fair enough. So let's start with presentation. We'll discuss, we can take a look at the proposed number, and then we can entertain a motion to approve a stated number.
So-
Daniel, are you?
So, Mayor and Council, so as you see on the slides, you also have in the packet, however, we have made some adjustments, minor adjustments, to make sure that everything is reflecting properly. The city is required by Chapter 26 of the Texas Property Code to determine and publish a no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate. We have done that. It's on the website. Decide how much revenue is needed and calculate the rate required to raise that amount. Publish notices, and if the proposed tax rate will exceed the no new revenue rate, hold one public hearing. And then finally adopt a tax rate. There is, on the next slide, as you see on the screens before you, there are the current rate of 31 cents. No new revenue rate is listed as the 309799, and then the voter approval rate, which if that's exceeded, it is 326051. And then the proposed tax rate that is presented is 309799. You'll see the breakout down below the M&O and the INS. So for those that are watching, the INS is the tax rate, and the operational rate is the number on top of 270794. So that combined actually equals the no new revenue rate, and therefore does not exceed and would not need a public hearing. So as proposed, you see on the slide there, as indicated previously, you see the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate, just to confirm that, and then we'll go to the next slide. All right, and so with the proposed tax rate, it is equal to the no new revenue rate, and again, if that continues to be the way forward, then the city council is not required to hold a public hearing to obtain citizen input. And then the final slide. So ultimately, what this does is, as you've seen on the previous slides, just indicates that the public hearing, if held, is going to be the 11th of September, 2025. And that would be, if it is only up to the public hearing rate, then that's the way that we would proceed. If it was to touch the voter approval rate, then that would be an entirely different process and timeline. I yield.
Okay. Well, let's open up for discussion.
Okay,
Sure.
I'll start. So I'm looking at the voter approval tax rate, and I was curious if we set a tax rate that came right below that. So it wouldn't require voter approval, but it would be slightly higher than the current tax rate. How much additional revenue would the city pick up?
So if we went to just below the
voter approval rate, if we did it just straight like that, it would be close to like, I think, like close to like $213,000. However, there is inside of the language within the tax code, we cannot exceed the no new revenue, we cannot exceed the voter approval rate, but there is also an M&O rate that is important to keep in mind. So the M&O rate actually would bring it lower than the voters approval rate regardless, as long as we stay under that. So there's two gates that we have to be mindful of.
Okay.
It's not as simple as that bottom number, the 326051. It's not that simple. The M&O portion actually has a gate. And the M&O number that, as far as no new revenue rate, we would have to, I apologize. The maximum M&O rate without voter approval is actually .280765 that's the voter approval rate, and the no new revenue rate is .271271.
Yielding roughly $24,000,
Say again?
roughly $24,000
In which scenario?
additional revenue, considering the cap on the M&O and raising it up to the cap. Because, and we calculate that by the difference between the current tax rate and the proposed tax rate, as you can see, is 0.02 of a cent, and that equals roughly $4,200. So all we're losing with the proposed rate is about $4,200 a year, and that's because we paid down debt, which is required by law to reduce our INS. So that's why you see a reduction in the INS.
So if I may.
So that .0000201 equals 4,200. So you divide that into the number of times of the additional 1.6 cents, you have a factor of 5.75 times the $4,200 equals roughly $25,000 worth of additional revenue. So it's not much money one way or the other. It's just really, do you want to increase taxes or decrease taxes? Because with the extra money, we certainly do have savings. If you want to pull out the extra $25,000, we got $25,000. This was clearly spoken earlier. Better to pull the $25,000 out of 30+ million than increase people's tax rates when we're making money.
So, go ahead.
So if I may, so if I understand you right, so the current tax rate of 31 cents versus the 309,799, that difference actually on the M&O side equals $2,695 at the 98% pickup rate.
At the 96%, I was doing it at 100%.
The 98%.
And we only collect 98%, so you'd apply that factor to that $25,000 factor as well. So it'd actually be a little bit less, correct?
So with and maybe I don't understand the next, if there's another question, I guess I'll ask the question, but I'll answer the question. But if I am anticipating properly, looking at the rate of just under the maximum M&O rate for voter approval, and I just figured I'd just run a bunch of scenarios because I anticipate questions. At the M&O rate of 0.28076, which would yield a total tax rate of 0.319765, the M&O funds would be 4,587,347, which is a different from the current projected of $133,483 at the 98% rate.
Okay.
So I just running through the calculator, pulling things over so I can see what it is in the event that I am asked the question. I know the, so to speak, high low.
So at 0.319765. How
Zero.
much additional revenue would the city pick up?
That, as far as on the operational side, is $133,483.
Okay.
So that's the proposed rate?
No,
No,
that's if you raise rates to the maximum amount
Okay.
without requiring.
And so
Just
what's
under-
what's that difference? I think that's what Sabrina was asking. What's that delta?
Okay,
33,000.
133,000.
right.
And then if we left the rate as is, it's roughly what, $1 more per household? We're having what? We have roughly 3,000 homes right now.
That-
It would be a slight. So just to step back one half step, so we're in clarity. Just like when people pay down their mortgage, they pay down mortgage. The reason why you had a mortgage, because you went out and borrowed to buy a house. The reason why we have debt is we borrowed money to be able to put in water lines. When we did so, that was approved by voters. It was approved by voters. We agree to pay additional tax while we owe this money, but as we pay it off, you're gonna reduce the taxes until that portion of tax with the INS goes back down to zero, because before the loan, it was at zero. So it really should be looked at as two separate things. You have M&O, and then we made a deal with the public, we being our predecessors. We're gonna borrow money and raise your taxes, but as we pay it down, we'll pay that down to zero. Now, that's gonna take a few more years to pay down, 9 more years to pay down, and so that portion of that INS will, by law, dwindle down to zero. So, what that equates to this year is roughly $4,200 total taxes. It's really relatively negligible this year, but it is a slight decrease. And so really, against an $11.1 million budget, $4,200 is really kind of, I don't want to say any dollar is insignificant. We watch and manage every dollar very closely, but it's not the scale of a $100,000 or $200,000 difference. And so what you're faced with is, and unfortunately, in the manner in which this is listed and what we're having discussion, you're not seeing the entire budget. So this tax rate, proposed tax rate, is going to fully fund what you're about to see, the entire budget, without having to increase any taxes at all, and still have the savings, although you're going to see in the budget expenditures of, and as you know from the budget requests, we've had requests to spend every dollar of our capital improvement fund, right? And that will be decided amongst you all what we agree or not agree to purchase. But this tax rate fully funds the budget with all the additional raises and proposed insurance costs, or estimated. Estimated.
Anticipated.
And estimated and anticipated, but we will know that number of the next meeting.
So I was thinking, I had a similar question as you, Sabrina. I was looking at this a different way. So I was looking at, I think this is a very nominal decrease. And I think there's still more wiggle room in the budget that when we get to the budget, I'd like to bring up and discuss, especially when it comes to capital improvement and what we've earmarked to put in. I think some of that could be used for further pay increases, knowing that we can always reach back to our reserves, which I think is an area that everyone's concerned about. There's a lot of money sitting in there. It's ideal for, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, it's really ideal for purchasing things, material, building warehouses, folding the reserve into wages. I was confused when we first started talking about this back in June, but to me personally, I think trying to use the reserves to pay raises is stealing money out of your savings account, and it's never gonna go up until your revenues can pay for your actual wages, your expenses every year. Otherwise, every year, you're going right back to your reserves until you don't have any money in your reserves. So that's my approach. So I'm okay with what we're proposing here, but I think we can get to, if it's legal, we can actually get to some further pay increases by looking at the proposed budget when we get to that agenda item. So that's where I'm coming from.
Jen?
So, the voter approval tax rate, that's what voters have approved and said is an acceptable property tax rate. It's been
No.
approved.
No, what it
And
is,
so,
that's incorrect. Let me just clarify so we don't go too far. That's what's calculated by Bear County. If you want to raise taxes, you can set the tax at, everybody got to pay $1 million. But if you would go above 32,605, the voters didn't vote for that. That is what is calculated by Bear County based upon what our current rate is, what our current expenditures are, what our current debt is, well as the maximum that you can go without requiring a voter approval. So if you want to do even 1/100,000th of a penny more, you would have to have an entire election and vote.
I understand that.
Okay.
I just find it ironic that when we did Prop A to raise the sales tax by 0.25%, one of the easy ways I explained to residents is if you buy, X amount of taxable dollars in the city of Helotes, it's gonna be like 50 cents more. Are you okay with that? And so, when I see the needs of the city, and then we are saying we can't use reserves, that's not, a sustainable amount. I'm saying, why aren't we leveraging what we have available for our property taxes to give our employees what they earn, an acceptable wage? And anyway, that's all I have.
Dave?
I would have to agree with you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, for the last 4 years, property taxes have been reduced, and it's been a very nominal amount. It's not an amount that a lot of homeowners would actually feel. In some cases, on a $350,000 home, you're talking about, maybe you could buy a cup of coffee a week with the savings. So I do believe every dollar counts, and we've had some very lively discussions and debates around salaries. We have seen the budget, and once we start that discussion, I'm gonna be very curious to know exactly what the percentage increases have been to the salaries. These are not raises, these are market salary adjustments, because we identified significant gaps compared to other.
Okay, you're going into budget, which is out of this
Okay.
item, so our attorney.
Well, I
says
think
that
until we know exactly what has been invested as far as capital improvements and also salaries, I don't think we should be voting on whether we lower taxes again.
So I would entertain a motion to suspend item number 6 until we can have item number 7. Personally, I feel that would be that way we can take a look at the budget, see what's going on, so you have, an idea of what this proposed tax rate does. And if we need an extra $4,000, then we can, keep it the same. And if you decide you need a little bit more money, you can decide if you want to pull that out of savings or raise taxes. What's at hand is the mentality. Do we amass massive amounts of savings instead of taxing it, continue to raise taxes? Or do we work with the EDC in our development and our expansion of sales tax revenues, which we have continued to have increased ad valorem, be able to utilize our savings for purchases, continue to add on raises at a rate that is twice anything done historically from many of our predecessors, and continue to work away. You brought up one salary survey. I've seen another one that places is much higher. We got statewide surveys that show that we're well above midpoint, and some of our divisions are up in the top 25%. I do believe that as we get into that discussion on number 7, but as we go through there, as we kind of, if there is somebody willing to make a motion to suspend, so we can look at the budget and see what it actually says, you can see that you have before 2 concepts. Do we continue to amass money and raise taxes? Or do we do what the law states and draw that INS down, maintain an appropriate M&O, continue to do what we all ran on, which is to manage effectively and efficiently and reduce property taxes? And which direction are we driving to? Tax and spend, tax and spend, tax and spend, or properly manage and reduce taxes? Which direction are we driving that? And we can still take care of our employees, and I really feel strongly about that, as evidenced with what this council has done over the past 5 years, being aggregately twice what has been done in the past on a per annum and a cumulative basis. After this year, citywide, it's going to be, what you're going to see is 27.5% over 5 years. Twice previous. So with this mentality, which is we're thinking about what we're thinking about tax rate, I would suggest that we suspend item 6. If we can have somebody in motion in a second, we can vote on suspending until we have.
You don't have to vote. If we're all in agreement, we can just suspend,
Still need a motion to
not to
suspend.
suspend. No.
Is there anybody that opposes suspending?
No.
Okay, then we will suspend item number 6 and move into item 7. Does not require motion because this is just a presentation and discussion.
All right, so Mayor and Council, you'll see on the screen, also in your packet, the screens are different because, again, we went back through the same number that was changed regarding the tax rate has also been changed in this presentation. You'll also see anything that has been marked as different. It actually will say updated on the slide. At least that's my intent. All right, so we'll walk it through. First thing that you'll see is basically the org chart. From previous year, it is a little bit different. It actually puts the city administrator in between police and fire, and it is that way also. You'll see the little arrow going sideways laterally from city administrator to the chiefs, representing when there's delegated authority and the responsibilities of the city administrator to serve them in that capacity. The mission, vision, and goals are also listed that have been created for the professional staff, and I just show them this is your second or third look at this particular language. No change has been made to it, but the goals that we're considering along the way are about being aware of financial challenges and concerns related to wages, compensation, and then the primary goal is to provide exceptional service to the city of Helotes while honoring our professional staff. Naturally, we are sensitive to all the needs that are out there. The budget that has been proposed has been developed to be consistent with the established mission, vision, and goals of the city of Helotes.
allocate resources by department to provide excellent municipal services to our citizens, business visitors, and highlight how to allocate the resources, financial and capital, and target them to maintain efficiency in our daily operations. Bear County has provided us the certified totals that you've already seen. It is an increase overall of 3.19% when looking at the net taxable value. About 40% of our city revenue come from property taxes, and Helotes remains one of the lowest property tax rates in the Bear County suburban cities area. You'll see that our comparison as of the current tax rate, you'll see that Fair Oaks Ranch is at 28.53. We're at 31 right now. There's just one other in the 30 range, and that's Chavano. So we do have history that you'll see on the chart on the next slide that talks about or demonstrates where we've been, and our current maintenance and operations portion of the tax rate is equal to 0.270805 for calendar year 24. That's what we're riding on currently. You saw this slide previous on the tax rate. Okay. And then here is the history, including the proposed as of this moment. You'll see that there's been a marked decrease starting 2022 to current where we are with the proposal. You'll also see that the breakdown of the property tax rate between the maintenance and operations and the I&S, or the debt. Okay. And on the next slide, you'll see it reads 2025 property tax freeze, where ultimately for 47 of our residents and property owners, we're adding 47 more to that essentially the tax freeze. And this includes those who are disabled veterans, the surviving spouses of disabled veterans, disabled persons, and those over age 65. Our current tax sales rate is the second largest source of our revenue, and it equals about 35% overall on the city side. And we have ultimately the 1.25 sales tax comes to the city, and that's broken out by 1.25 comes to the general fund, 0.25% goes to street maintenance, and 0.5% goes to the EDC, or Economic Development Corporation. So sales tax, we're forecasting $3.9 million, and in that overall, you see the 1.2 projected for streets, 1.5 projected to the EDC, and 3.9 to the general fund. Okay. And as we look at it, this is basically with the first pie chart, basically breaks down the revenues by large area, whether it's fine and forfeitures or property tax, sales tax, when it comes to our revenues. Okay. Then we have our expenditures, and with the zero-based budget, our goal is to have our revenues and our expenditures to ultimately match. We do show that the 11,071 is $200,000 short of the exact match, but per past practice, we have $200,000 that is allocated or aimed at the capital improvement fund, and these are the distribution by percentage and dollar amount. So when we look through the major departments, we look through and we have it allocated out to 100%, and if you just, this is another view of the same, minus the dollar amounts exact. Okay.
Then you'll see on this slide here regarding the proposed budget, you'll see that from city council all the way down to IT. I will note that IT is a new budget line item. What we did with IT was we brought all the different aspects of the technology into an independent budget line so that it is easier to see and track and understand. So that's why for fiscal year ending '25, it shows that there is a zero balance there. And we can walk through some of the fund statements on the next few slides. Okay. So overall, we got a 7.74% increase from the current budget year. The expenditures show at representing a 7.89%, and again, that's with that $200,000 going towards capital. The next slide shows us that we are looking to continue to be competitive and remain competitive. And our goal is to be able to recruit and retain qualified professional staff. And so the cost of living range is, as it's currently thrown, is based on department and we also evaluated the vacancies to fill rate and a few other factors, which informs that we have in the current budget, ultimately, it is $360,000 for wage increases overall. And that ultimately ends up being a 6% if you do the average across all departments. The thing that we are waiting on is our health care premiums, what that is going to be. We anticipate potentially 20% increase. We are waiting for our broker, our new broker, to get back with us on Monday. We have an appointment set for Monday to be able to walk through the proposals that have come in. So we're hoping and praying that we're below 20% for the increase. So as many know, that we've sat in this room and a broker was selected not many weeks ago. Okay. Currently, 75 of the 84 employees participate in the health insurance. So some of the highlights: increase in the sales tax revenue, increase in property valuation, and decrease in the property tax rate is currently proposed. We got some equipment replacement for fire and police, some IT system upgrades, building maintenance and repairs, and then some incentives for staff, which includes on the next slide tuition assistance reimbursement. That I know that's been talked about. I think 2 budgets ago. We are at the point where the policy is at legal for review. We have implemented the language skills, and that's in play. And then we're looking to, across the board, look at the certification pay range from $300 to $1,500. We considered inflation that, for our expenditures. When it comes to some of the adjustments on the next slide, we have moved the band under mayor and council, and we're looking to increase that to $1,500 instead of $1,000. Marketing and expenses, events, have moved to administration instead of being under building and grounds, where also the band was listed, and we've taken some of the IT things out of the building and grounds, and so you'll see a difference in building and grounds that goes down significantly compared to previous years. We are looking to do 2 separate household hazardous waste disposals, so that'll come in with an increase on that particular budget line. Emergency communications has IT as well as dispatch. Again, that's where we pulled all those items into a single view. On the, we're looking at multi-factor authentication to maintain our compliance with CGIS and other requirements. We're upgrading our executive time, which we take care of our time and attendance and do some of the math regarding pay. From the budget, dispatch standpoint, there's no significant adjustments there. On the police side, we're replacing 10-year-old tasers, and we're building up our training and cartridge replenishment. We're looking at fuel cost increases. We're evaluating the maintenance increase due to how old some of our vehicles are. We are adding a car wash contract. The radar trailer, we looking to bring that into play, as well as some very specific and purposeful community engagements. So those are police adjustments. On the fire side, we're looking for the uniform allowance to go from $720 to $900 per uniform staff member. And then on the next slide, we're looking at certification change not to exceed the 1,500 annual totals. And we have it laid out as far as how that's being presented. Okay. Nothing significant to report for court. And for events and marketing, we're going to bring on 2 movie nights. We're going to continue with the Easter egg hunt, which was the first time this year. And then we need to do some upgrades to our Christmas ornamentation and trees and those type of things, and as well as we're going to forego Boo Bash, and that's going to be replaced by the officially the Easter egg hunt and the bringing the 2 movie nights back. For development services, we're going to a new management system, electronic management system, which will be in play really soon. We've already started training on that and been walking with the vendor very deeply in some other communities. Public Works, animal control. So we've been evaluating our expenses for animal control and what gets sent out, how many we keep back, all of those type of things, and how that impacts over time. So that's a delicate balance. Again, I mentioned earlier the household waste going to 2 events. Storm response, the overtime for that actually is totally unpredictable. It's a real-time thing, kind of like being in the Northeast, snow and ice budget type of thing. And then events coordination, as far as we walked a very, very tight line on making sure we understood all the forecasted events, the total staff associated, and the overtime across the board for that. Next, you'll see our street maintenance plan. This has been updated since the last time you saw it. Last time you saw it, it was reading $860,000. The changes regarding Circle A, in the event that Circle A drainage project gets pushed into October, we need to account for those funds for October as opposed to September. So that's the only change. So if it is completed in September, then that will be an expenditure in this current fiscal year. And street maintenance comes from its own independent sales generation or revenue. Okay, and so we anticipate, actually this has been added and updated. The revenues actually for street maintenance, as of this week when we went back through, we recognized that it's actually 1.34 million for 2025. And so, and again, we're asking for 1.1 million instead of the 860,000. The general fund balance shows as the $12.375 million in accordance with the 2026 proposed budget. The reserve balance or balance in months, we currently show a projection of 13.41. And then we have basically this another review of our allocations and our projected fund balance. Okay. So looking at this current slide, we'll see that yes, we acknowledge that the GFOA or Government Finance Officer Association recommends at least 3 months of operating, which would be the 2.76. And city policy says that we are to maintain at least 2 months of operating expenses, which is $1.84 million. Basically saying it's like 922.5 as a monthly expenditure. All right, and then our estimated, well, you've seen this number, it's just another way to present it. Outstanding actions, actions. So our budget as presented does not include the personnel requests. So we had personnel requests of 5 professionals, 1 assistant to the city administrator, 1 fire inspector, lieutenant, and 3 EMT basic positions. And so it also does not include in the operational budget the capital expenditures or requests. And just as a reminder, capital requests are aimed at our capital reserve fund. And that expenditure anticipated is anywhere between $600 and $1.1 million. Okay. On this slide here is basically shows it doesn't show the long math, meaning all of the like FICA and health and all those type of things that are associated with positions, but we did do the long math on the positions that were requested. Capital improvement plan. So currently, to include our fiscal year 25 expenditures, and the anticipated transfer, that puts us right at $1 million, just over $1 million for that fund budget, fund balance. You'll see a list. I will say, I know it's hard to read if you're looking from inside the room and don't have it on a device, but basically we just laid out all of our capital requests that have come in by department. The costs, I bring your attention to the arrow and the block on the left-hand side. As you're looking at it, it says Medic 2 discussion. Medic 2, ultimately that ambulance has, the request is really 3 options. One option is do a remount, essentially buy a new chassis and engine, drop the box back on top of it. And so that would go across 2 fiscal years, but it would still be the same number of units that we would have. Second and third option is to maintain Medic 2 and look at the maintenance along the way, but we actually would look at purchase new. 2 options to purchase new over 2 fiscal years or over 3 fiscal years, depending on the time of the order. So when you're doing math, yes, at the bottom of the column, it will show a much larger number because literally the math is counting every number on the screen for fiscal 2026. So on later slides, you'll see. Now, I will bring your attention to the red items on the slide. There's the vent hood and the perimeter fence that are marked in red in 2 columns. Those are items that in the workshop were discussed and my understanding, were marked as not supported going forward. The items in the blue on this particular view are things that were originally intended but added or changed. So when it comes to blue on this slide. So on the next slide, you'll see some additional items that we would mark as enhancements. That goes all the way down to IT requests, public works, and fire. You'll see the IT request, citywide security system marked in red. The other items, we're looking for your support. So if all items, and not counting the triple input of the Medic 2, it comes out to 1.119. That will be an overage of 118,000 plus over what we have earmarked for capital expenses. On the next slide is a quad chart. If the full list was supported,
Then again, based on our capital projection for our funds, you'll see $118,000 overage. If you support everything except the red, then that takes us down to an expenditure of 861,000. And then if you delay or not support Medic 2, then it goes down to just under 600,000. And then for this particular year, and then if the water truck and Medic 2 and the red is not supported, then that yields an expenditure of $457,000. I will say that I added that fourth quadrant with the water truck because it was not listed in the workshop, in the last workshop. But I will say that that is a resource that I feel very strongly about and seek your support on that, because our professionals that are in public works, that are clearing culverts and going into certain other areas, if they can send high pressure through those things before they physically send a human through those, I'd much rather be concerned about their safety and their longevity here in the city. So next steps, ultimately, you will see the fee schedule. Any proposed changes to that we'll bring to the next meeting. I believe we have it on, do we have it on this meeting, or no, did we take it off?
It's number 9.
Okay, so it is listed as number 9 on this particular agenda. Comments will be minimal, and I am equipped to provide a preview to a degree verbally. September 11th, if a budget hearing is needed, then that would be the day that we would aim the public hearing to, and that's why the tax rate discussion and roll call vote today is important. And then on the 25th is when we look to have our second reading of the budget and go final. If you go to the next slide, so in anticipation of the discussions related to tax rate, I actually did the math to show we are forecasting at the 98% collection rate. And on this slide, you'll see green in 2 places, and that is based on the current proposed budget on the top side. Under that is the current rate that we're at, the 31 cents. And so I have, again, the 98% rate as well as the 31 cents rate highlighted in yellow. And that is on the M&O side, only talking about M&O side, is $2,695 of a difference on the 98% M&O. If you go to the next slide, and that should be the last slide. So on this slide, after having gone through and looking at the multiple lines on the tax rate sheet that we've received, I wanted to make sure that we identified clearly what the max M&O rate. So I mentioned earlier that well, I don't know if I mentioned earlier or not. I've been in so many different discussions this week and today. But when we look at the tax rate, we pointed to the overall bottom line number of 3206 or whatever the number was for the overall tax rate that would be voter approval. What is really important for us to understand and recognize is that there are 2 portions that could cause us to go to a vote or hold a public hearing. So, and that is directly related to the M&O tax rate, regardless of what the overall tax rate is. So I want to make sure that we identify that the M&O no new revenue tax rate is 0.271271. That would cause us, going above that would cause us to have a public hearing, even if the overall rate is below that no new revenue tax rate overall. Is that clear? I think I said that properly. The other piece of that is what is the voter approval rate for M&O, and that number is 0.280765. What I did in this illustration, and again, this is the last slide, what I did is I took off the 5 on the end to see what the difference is between, and on the top side of the slide in the green is what's forecasted, and what's below it is the max, the just under the voter approval rate. So I yield.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We are in the discussion phase. Craig, let's start down here. And do you have thoughts?
Did you and Henry want to discuss about proposed wage increases, or is that not going to be discussed?
Well, that is a portion of the discussion within the budget in this particular item. So what we have done, I guess what you're asking is,
What's the proposed way forward?
the proposed way forward regarding wages, wage distribution by percentage. So we have, depending on how everything shakes out, but how it's thrown right now is we are looking at the administrative side, development services, public works, and municipal court at a proposed wage, COLA of 5.1%. Emergency communications and police are currently listed at 8%, and fire and EMS are currently listed at 3.2%. In all of this, there are 3 positions that have targeted consideration, and those considerations are for the Public Works, the lead and the number 2, as well as targeted for our finance director. The finance director, as I see it, has an asterisk. If the numbers were to change, there is a certain point where I turn off the targeted and it receives, if it's above a 5.386, I believe.
Is that written down in a slide so we can actually physically look at it and compare it and digest it?
I apologize, I did not put it on a slide.
So Public Works would fall under the 5.1.
5.1, yes, sir.
Okay. Police and dispatch 8.0
Yes, sir.
and fire 3.2.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
As well as admin and municipal court development services, 5.1.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain how, I'm looking at slide number 37 on the general fund balance in millions, and then the subsequent slide on months. So at the end of the fiscal year ending 2024, the general fund balance was just over $11 million. And in months, that was just over 16 months of reserves.
Yes.
Okay,
And you're
so,
asking how, if we have more money, are we less months?
no, so in 2025, there was a slide that estimated that another 1.55 million will be added to that general fund.
So
That was a
current.
previous slide, so.
Correct. That, if I may,
Yeah.
that 1.5 million is in the event that we do not fully expend and based on revenue receipts and on the projection.
Okay.
That is a projection.
So you're projected to add another 1.5 million to the general fund, taking us up to 12.375 million, but down to just over 15 months.
Correct. And further, by the end of the year, that same amount will only be 13 months. You have to remember, we had ARPA money that came in, and part of the reason we have as much money in savings is because we were able to make purchases with ARPA money that we ended up not having to use out of our money. So effectively, we got a boost, and rob Peter to pay Paul, if you will. So that $2 million ended up boosting reserves, if you will. So a big chunk of that was in there. We added positions across the city through ARPA that were paid for ARPA funds by a separate fund. So while we have more money, then the perfect example of that is look at 25 estimated end, 12.375, and we're presenting a balanced budget, so therefore we'll still have 12.375 at the end of 26. But it drops from 15.17 to 13.4 months because those new salaries are actually paid for out of budget this year as opposed to out of ARPA money. So you divide your money by your expenses per month and you get X number of months. Our expenses per month automatically went up with the movement of those salaries from ARPA into our actual budget. So the same amount of money doesn't cover as many months because we have a bigger monthly bill.
We'll also be fully expended on ARPA by the end of this calendar year.
And so that's the, and there are a couple items in there, but now you also see that we now start on our trend down, which we anticipated. It's part of the reasons why we built up savings as much as we could. Early years, we ran into some challenges with the construction, worked our way through that. We're now facing 4 to 5 years on 1560 and another 3+ years on Bandera Road going north. So there are some challenges. We also have some, shall we say, retail concerns that we still need to be finished, and that's about all we can say in this environment. And so having perhaps a larger cushion, not a bad position, but certainly we are in a position of strength to, as discussed in the previous workshops, double the amount that we're putting towards raises, which again, historically is significantly higher than, you know, as a citywide base than what has ever been done.
So the past, I mean, under the previous mayor, the raises were 3%, and you've supported 5% raises.
5, and now 6, compounded is 27.5.
Okay, well, but not compounded every year, 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. It just seems stagnant when our reserves keep going up by the millions year after year.
So I understand what you're saying, and I'll address those in a minute. Let's continue the discussion.
Can I go to capital improvement?
Sure.
So, and this is related to the reserves. So are we handcuffed to what we purchased on the CIP that's projected out for the next 10 years? Or can we actually, no kidding, just buy it with our reserves?
We're not handcuffed.
Okay. So I personally see that's how we smartly look at spending our reserves, and we can buy down potentially. We earmarked $200,000 to go into the CIP this year. We as a council could very easily say, you know what, we're only gonna put 100,000, and then we're gonna add that other 100,000 to figure out how to continue to raise the rates that the mayor and Henry just talked about. That's where I'm going. How can how can we spend the reserves smartly by using our O&M money in our budget to get our employees to a better wage?
So I guess this would be the best time.
And I'm not trying to take the reserves and take them down to zero, but it is too high. It is way too high, and I think everybody is in agreement it's too high. And I know it will go down naturally, but it's not gonna go down naturally fast enough. We do have real problems, and I think that's what I think you're hearing tonight. So I would like to use this budget, do something a little different with not putting as much money for 1 year into the CIP, fill that gap with our reserve money to purchase those one ticket item things that happen once in a blue moon, they're not a recurring cost every year, and prop up and add additional percentages to what we've already heard in the room earlier. That's what I'm interested in. And I don't think we have to raise the, our ad valorem tax in order to do that. And I don't think there's anybody here, well, maybe just me, I don't know, that we're gonna fix this problem in one budget. When we walked away from our workshops, I thought there was kind of a consensus that this was probably a 3-year plan. And so that's how I'm approaching it. Maybe I'm approaching it incorrectly. But that's where I'm coming from. So I think there's some tweaking to this budget that could add 9% to HPD. I know fire and EMS relatively are probably the healthiest department pay-wise, but there's no reason why we couldn't continue to increase that up to 5%, 4.5 with additional funding. And also, by the way, if we actually come in with our insurance and benefits lower than the 20% that we've projected, that we put a wedge in for, I would like to see that money go towards pay increases. I think there's room to work in this budget to continue to build this out. And maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think we can do that, and at the same time, use our reserves to buy those things that Henry talked about that are currently on the CIP spreadsheet. So I yield my time now.
All right, so let me address a couple of things, because you bring up some excellent points. Everybody has brought up excellent points. I guess I have to address the elephant in the room. Despite well-intentioned citizen comments, I do not ignore audited statements. I understand them. And often citizen commentary is just factually incorrect. When we take a look at our money at 15.
I'm sorry, point of order. That's your opinion? That doesn't mean it's a fact?
No, we brought in our
And I
auditor.
think we need to be respectful to our citizens. You said something to me as this meeting began. You asked me if my husband was going to speak at every meeting. He is a citizen, he is a resident, he is a taxpayer, and he has every right to.
I don't doubt that. So I can still address factual inaccuracies. We brought in our auditor to describe and explain. We do have 13.9 months, but that is, as was decided, as described, unassigned. That doesn't mean it's unrestricted. Our unrestricted funds are down at 9.01 months. I look 5 to 10 years down the road. I don't have the luxury to snapshot a point in time and make assessments based upon how much money we have, and let's just spend that now because we got it. I have to look at the sustainability of a city, and you all have to vote on that. Now, you certainly can vote. We can pay everybody $200,000 a year. I don't care. The city will bankrupt.
No one's
But-
asking for that.
I am making a point. I'm making a point of discussion. You can certainly give your opinion there, but what I'm pointing out is this, is that what I'm presenting is the realization that when we look at, when you all ascertain unrestricted funds, which is really 9 months, because we have restricted funds that we can't touch, debt money that we can't touch, road money that we can't touch, it just hasn't been assigned yet. It's still in the calculated. We have as much money as we have because we have rescued reserves, but a lot of this has to do with the increased businesses that have moved in the city. We do have increased sales tax. You don't think we have increased sales tax?
No, I'm shaking my head for another reason. No,
Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay. We have, our ad valorem has increased, the value of our houses has increased greatly. And we have increased sales due to more traffic, and inflation, while is individually hard, increases the price of the goods, and when they're sold, the prices are higher, and we get taxed on that higher price. So that increases. And additionally, I personally went out, fought, and got $350,000 from Bear County for a grant. That's windfall money that went into that increased amount. On top of that, the deal I struck with the 380 agreement got us $700,000. That went into that money that we have. Yes, we can spend it on whatever we want. On top of that, we did press by Craig, your work, Jen, your work, and my work, door to door to get Prop A. That 0.25% sales tax brought in a lot of money for 8 officers. They weren't hired on day one. So on a given year, we did have a lot of excess money that year because we had to budget for the money to be spent, but it took a while to fill those positions. That's not an ongoing windfall of money that's going to be $1 million every year because those positions are now fully filled. So there needs to be a realization on factual assessment of where the money came from, where did the excess money, what money do we actually have? I'm not opposed to addressing salary issues, you all know that. If you don't know that from public meetings, many of you know this from private meetings. We really have to understand the difference between unassigned and unrestricted. And I agree with you, Craig. I had a citizen write to me that said, we have all this money, we should give the money back to the people or increase pay or spend the money down. I agree with that as well, too. Part of my goal is you have to, again, take a look. Are we moving towards continuing reducing property taxes to the investors of this community who pay for this, while also taking care of our employees? That is something that's very important to do, and it's balanced. We may never achieve, we will achieve debt-free. We may never achieve property tax-free, but it's certainly a goal, and we are moving in that direction, have been moving in that direction, and continue. We will have order in here, or we will be removed. So when we look at 5 to 10 years, I am happy to say and support, if we want to take a look at taking money out of reserves, if we want to add an extra $100,000, and we pay for that out of reserves this year, and apply that to salaries, that's certainly okay. To raise taxes so that we can have even more money, and then complain and condemn that we have so much money just really seems absolutely ridiculous. So in that sense, I would highly suggest go with the proposed tax rate. We don't need to not bring money over, as much money over to capital improvement. We can actually bring even more over to balance the budget and increase an extra $100,000. The requested purchases of easily $1 million worth of requested purchases that we looked at in budget workshop would completely drain what we currently have in that funds, which means we'd have to go back to our unrestricted funds of 9 months and pull money over. But that's what that money is there for. Let's not forget, we also have a fire engine, which would be, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, $1 million plus, that is nowhere on that list, all right? So these other things would drastically reduce months of reserves. And so we have to take a look at not just what's on that list, but what large items are continuing. Because you are right, Councilmember, those specifics aren't recurring. But the following year, there's going to be a lot more requests for other things that are one time, once in a while. So every 13 years, we buy a new, 15 years, however many years, we buy a new fire truck. After this, we have some police vehicles we're buying, but the next year we're going to have more police vehicles, and they're rotating, so there's going to be additional things.
So Mayor, I think I was the one that proposed that. And so my whole point is, where I was going with that is not to sell the house, right? My point is making strategic decisions on what is something that we can actually purchase out of the unrestricted funds that are still pretty healthy, and not necessarily feel guilty that we don't put $300,000, $400,000 in the CIP. And I think I thought this was the budget year to where we take that risk, and we have a lot of money in the unrestricted reserves that can support us. I'm not talking about shelving the CIP process. We got to have that process. But I think there's calculated risk we can take with this existing budget. I personally could work within this budget. But there's things that I want to see moved around. I just don't think it's feasible for us, and I don't know what fixed is. We say salaries aren't right. I don't know. I had the spreadsheet. I put in the percentage numbers of increases. What's healthy? What's right? What's not right? And I'm not sure anybody here on council can say, oh, well, once an entry-level police officer is making $65,000 right off the street, okay, we're healthy. I don't know. Is that the right answer? Or maybe when we get them to 60,000, because the entry-level folks are at 52, hey, that's a pretty dang good start. And then next year we can continue to work on that. That's where I'm coming from. So I don't want to raise taxes.
So I want to also state, it's been stated this is the mayor's budget, and that is by title. By direction, my commitment during budget workshop was that I wanted to rely heavily upon city administrator and our finance director and working with each of the department heads. So as far as figuring out the numbers, yes, it falls me, you want to blame me for having a lot of money in the bank, okay, blame me for having a lot of money in the bank. But this comes from working diligently with our staff and our department heads and figuring out what our needs, and also having long, arduous discussions on what are the effects on the second and third and fourth degree as we go forward. In this year, unique to any other year that I've seen in a long time, we've had heavy conversations on salaries, and I get that. To correct an incorrect rumor out there, this was not our city that made this city salary survey. Somebody grabbed it from another city that did it. We don't know the inputs, and we don't know if it's apples to apples. It does show a story. We also see a story of internally, regardless of external cities, internally we do have pay disparity in our public safety. That is something that has to be considered as well too, hence why you have what we have up there initially at this point. That said, something that's not in here that I would like to propose to be put in there is that we actually spend time, effort, and money and procure a salary survey during this year, so that we can see, cities that have the same services as us, cities that are appropriate size, and know the components, such as, does it include holiday pay? Well, ours does, or the number that was used for us was our base pay. What are the components so we actually can own and verify that? I'm not suggesting that we don't take a stab at chipping away at the rock, and that's why you see what the budget is this year. We're taking a stab at correcting some deficiencies within our city, but also keep moving forward, and then get a salary survey that we know all the inputs and we can verify and sign off on that, and not just, one thing I know from negotiations in the city of San Antonio, we showed that we were number 7 out of 7, and they showed, on firefighters in San Antonio showed, well, you're number 1 of 10. They just use different cities. And so there's many surveys out there as our opinions, but if we can do one where we can verify and feel comfortable with it, we can take a stab at it this year, we can chip away at some of the differentials this year, make progress forward. Some of the heavy left concerns that we can't discuss here, get those ironed out. We are in a much better position to make factual assessments and continue to make steps forward in, as you said, a 3-year, maybe we can do it in 2 years. We'll see what the facts relay. I yield.
How did we come up with the rates for the different departments? I mean, what data, how did we quantify that? Or did we just, this sounds good?
So that was general, large scale thinking, individual thinking. It was heavily on Daniel and Henry, but when we took a look at our original budget, which they put together, which was at the first workshop, showed, okay, here's where we are, and they stuck in a 3% number, which equaled X number of dollars. In our second workshop, what we did is we doubled that number. And then we went to work at, how do we spread that over? Do we spread it evenly across everybody, or do we take a look at some of the disparities? When you take a look at the pay disparities between a police officer and a fire officer in our own town, they were significant. And so various reasons for that, what was done in the past, different departments, however it ended up being the way it is, that's the way it is. And so we also took a look at, where's our turnover? The biggest number of turnover that we have is in our police department and in our dispatch. Currently our dispatch director is working the console multiple days a week because we don't have any bodies to stick in there. So it appears that when you take a look at number of turnover and where the salaries are and where we need the most help, again, looking internally first, comparatively second, we had to address some gaping holes within our own organization.
So that budgeted 20% in healthcare, how much is the staff are gonna have to eat of that 20%?
Well, that's entirely borne by us.
Yeah, so the city is eating that 20%
The city eats that
increase.
except for that 20% increase that applies to spouse and family that they have. But we continue to provide certain, still do the.
So there's a chance that their healthcare
Stipend.
premiums are going to increase, or deductibles.
Well,
or-
we pay 100% of all the employees' cost. And if they have a spouse, they have the option of adding spouse and children if they want. If their spouse works and the spouse has a policy at their work, they can take that, so they don't have any premium, if you will. But when we say 20% anticipated cost, out of our 84 employees, there's a certain amount that don't take our insurance at all because they have a spouse that has a family coverage, for example, or they, and we have 3-level plans, and we pay for, most cities pay for the bottom tier. In fact, it's one of the things that our insurance broker stated. We're working with our new broker. Says, I can't believe you guys pay the medium. Cities usually pay the bottom level and let you upgrade. We pay the silver level, if you will, and if they opt to pay, take the bronze level for whatever reason, we pay that cost and we put the difference into an HSA. So either way, we as the city are paying the same amount per employee, whether they choose the silver or they choose the bronze, and we put the difference in an HSA for them. So when we take a look at the total cost, if the cost is $1,000 a month and it goes to $1,200 a month, that extra $200 a month per employee comes to us.
Okay. And then the proposed percentage rates, how much is that generally in our budget now? The fire department, 3.2, the police, 8, and admin and PW at 5.1. How much is that budget-wise? 300?
$360,000.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may, I just want to make sure that there is a copay or a deductible that some of our.
In terms of the, yes, now, every policy has a copay, every policy has a deductible, but that is to the insurance policy. We pay the premium for the policy. Copays, deductibles, that's paid by the employee as is standard across.
And we have yet to see that from the vendor.
Right,
Yes.
that's, we have a meeting on Monday regarding the results of the RFP that went out so that we can figure out which vendors said what at what price and what's our best options.
Yes, sir.
Yet to be determined at this point.
All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip over Jen.
Well, I don't think we need to pay for a salary survey, just my opinion. I would like to see the percentages be high for a COLA for employees. I think it's a great start. I know it was not easy for staff to chop this up, and a lot of work went into these numbers, and I do appreciate where we are, but I think we can do better. I do like Councilmember Sanders' idea of pulling reserves for large purchases and then in turn using money for salaries. I like that idea. And this budget, I know you work with city staff, but city staff also requested 5 additional positions, 1 admin, 1 fire inspector, and 3 fire EMS that this budget doesn't reflect. So I just want to acknowledge that publicly, that as a council, I think we need to decide, and I know I'm getting more philosophical, is do we feel like our professional staff is managing their departments and know what their needs are? And are we responsive to what our professional staff says their needs are? Because it's like we're making improvements, but I just want to acknowledge that we're not anywhere near what they've asked for people.
So let's address the highest priority in those requests, in my opinion, are the 3 extra staff for fire, 1 for each shift. What can I say? What I can say is that a safer grant, even though we have applied for that in the past and haven't gotten it yet, we are working with our congressman and having that application in, and we are looking to see if we can't get that this year and bring them on, in which case they'd be paid for the first 3 years. Now, we unfortunately will not know the answer to that until after this budget is already, most likely won't find that out until probably October, or when it's too late to make adjustments. However, I would like to point out, it's never too late to make adjustments. We can always, amendment, thank you. I'm long. Got off a 48-hour this morning. And so we can address that mid-year if we feel that that priority needs to be addressed, which I do. And if we are unsuccessful in getting the grant, then we can always do a mid-year to be able to add that. Where would we pay for that? Well, it would be have to come out of reserves, which, as you pointed out, we have. Councilman Sanders, as you pointed out, it's always dangerous to pull salaries out of reserves, but it's not a huge amount. And we can, again, we have increased economic development processes that are in place, continued efforts that it's always a risk when you do this, but it can be a measured risk that we take a little bit of it and see how we can adjust that for additional revenues. Traditionally, when you decide you want to work in a structural deficiency, a structural deficit, it should be done when you have a reasonable method of being able to meet that long term. Our reasonable method for meeting that cost, if we added on, if we are unsuccessful in getting the grant, would be the additional houses that will be built over the next roughly 3 years in Brycewood, as well as the development that was now starting to get underway on Shanefield and Hausman, or 1560. So I feel that there's reason to be able to say by the time we get mid-year, if we don't get the grant, we can address that issue with a reasonable confidence that we've got funds to cover it.
If we did dip into the reserves, I mean, and we shoot ourselves in the foot, I mean, but we still have investment accounts also that are pretty decently healthy. Are those funds accessible to, say, we goofed up this year, we're gonna take care of it next year? I mean, there's
So when it was brought out that we made $1 million in interest, if you will, that interest income is figured into our overall revenue stream. So that's already accounted for. So when you spend that money, not only are you spending that money, but you're also reducing that income stream that's coming from that interest. Additionally, as Daniel has worked out, we're forecasting less interest next year, even on the same amount of money, because those are directly tied. As interest rates go down, our interest rate we get goes down. Yeah, and as we spend that, then you're kind of like your retirement account. Spend out your retirement account, and the interest rate goes down. You're gonna make. So there's room, and I'm encouraged. There's no bad news here. We've not done something terrible. We've done something great over the past couple of years. Got ourselves in a good situation, survived through a very challenging period, and came out on top. The ARPA things, yes, it's crazy. My goal was to have, my goal in small, to be between 6 and 9 months of unrestricted funds. We're at 9 months. Can we dip into that? We certainly can. We need to raise taxes. I feel we need to cut taxes and continue to cut taxes and work towards cutting taxes so there's no property tax. What a great way to draw more businesses into the area. However, do I think we'll get there? Probably not. But we go in that direction. In the meantime, take care of our employees. Can we add some and take it out? Yes, we've discussed that. We can do structural deficit. But how much is risk is directly proportional. I might also say that a salary survey might be in the realms of $5,000. Both this council and other boards have approved $30,000 for assessing our park. To spend a little money on our assessing our salaries, I think would be wise money to be spent, so that we are dealing with facts and not just something we pulled off of the internet or some other city's without knowledge of what actually was included.
Some of those numbers were from Texas Municipal League.
They were?
Why do we pay for a membership if we're not gonna trust their numbers?
Because our numbers weren't accurate. Our numbers didn't include the things that we also pay. So if our numbers weren't even accurate on that salary,
Well, I think with the salary survey, we're looking at base salaries, we're not looking at phone allowances and other benefits that were discussed at the workshops. Henry, you provided the salary survey, can you give us a little bit of background on how that was compiled?
Certainly, that's too easy. So the salary survey was led by Leon Valley. They sent out the request for the essentially the salary survey is based on what the top line columns are. So the top line columns, they send it out to the different municipalities. They ask for the input and for those lines to be filled in, and we put our part inside that salary survey. That salary survey was not filled out on our behalf, but we fill in according to the data that's requested on the form.
So the municipalities then self-report the low, the mid, and the high range for a position.
As requested by how the template was built.
Okay, that's very similar to what TML has for their salary survey. It's reported by municipalities. Some of them will list the salary of the person that's currently in the position, but then also include the low, the mid, and the high range for that position, should they have to advertise it. I looked at that, and I looked at communities with roughly the same population that we do in our area and even further north. And I saw similar significant gaps among all of the departments, including fire. I have no reason to believe that the information these communities are reporting is wrong. And I know there was a lot of dispute during the workshops over the validity of this survey. Just because you don't agree with it doesn't make it wrong or that it's bad information.
My concern with that is, I don't know if I'm comparing apples to apples.
It's never going to be apples to apples. Every community is different, but what was the same about all of them is they paid more than we did. Kerrville knows that it's not Bernie, and Bernie knows that it's not Fredericksburg, and San Antonio knows that it's not Dallas.
So I was reading on the Fair Oaks Ranch page, and in their budget, was it last year or this year, they were paying for something like what the budget is. Validate that they're paying their employees correctly. And so I would imagine they would actually go and look at scope of responsibility. Because I know some of our departments, stuff is outsourced. Civil engineering and public works. We don't have a civil engineering department. We pay a contract. So,
Yeah.
so the responsibility for, in that example, of the public works director is different than somebody in Converse who has 40 people working for them. And some of them are engineers, water treatment plants. That's what for me, I can't look at that, me personally, and see that I'm looking sort of like apples to apples.
No,
And maybe it's me, I
No,
just had a hard time.
and I agree. Every community is different, and there's different scopes of responsibility and varying numbers of people that you're responsible for supervising. I understand that. But our salaries are joked about and pointed out to me in person as I'm talking to people throughout the community. And I just believe that our employees are the backbone of this community. The services that we provide our residents don't run by themselves.
Absolutely, 100% agree.
And we're paying taxes to get the highest quality of services. And that costs money. And I think that,
how much do you
just,
pay?
I think you pay something that is competitive, and it's gonna differ for each department and positions. I think when you look at it critically, I trust that our city administrator and our finance director can make those calls, working with the department heads. No one is asking to get rich. No one is asking
So, but
to make $500,000 a year is, you had joked with me earlier.
Well, I said 200, but yes.
Well, no, I mean, after the last budget workshop, you said $500,000. Nobody's asking for that. But I think just a fair compensation, I don't think we should be the highest paying municipality in the area, but I think we can do a lot better.
And that's a fair statement, and that's why I adhere to the statement that we need to spend a little bit of money and do a salary survey, because when you look at that, not a single city handles holiday pay like we do. No, it's not even heard of. And there, you have to add and look at what our base salary is in there, but it doesn't include our holiday pay. That you have to add several $1,000s to that pay, and then all of a sudden the disparity isn't quite like what it showed. And so to the point, like for example, one of the public works directors, one of the departments in there is somebody that has, a city that has 138 workers, the guy has 38 years worth of experience, is college degreed, and they have their own water and sewer systems. It is not apples to apples. When you throw that and say, oh, look, to your point, Craig, it's not. That's why it's imperative that we take a stab at addressing salaries, but to try to say, let's just throw a arbitrary number, some larger number, or significantly larger, or triple, or quadruple, or whatever number you want to put to it. That's why I asked, you can have them work, and they're putting together when they take a look at what is the effects on this going years by, and what foreseeable income do we have to address it. You leave a structural deficit that brings the city in a downward slope. They're telling you that, yes, we can work and adjust it. Like Craig, you're saying, we can work with this budget, want to move an extra $100,000 over there and adjust it a couple percent, but we should do a salary survey. We should spend $5,000. You guys offer, again, $30,000 to address what kind of amenities we want in the park. We can spend $5,000 assessing exactly what is included in there, so we have a degree of certainty about what is included.
I support the survey, so we can get somebody that comes in here that does this for a living and compares us to cities that are almost identical to us or close enough. I don't know when we're good, and not having a clear-cut goal. When are we healthy? When are we not healthy? I'll admit, I think we're stabbing in the dark right now. But some of these issues, in my opinion, are no-brainers. Dispatch, I would almost say, is broken. They're hanging on with public on the shoestring. That's how I would describe their operations.
If I may, I would, when you say broken, what I believe that you're saying is because of the vacancies that.
Talking about salaries.
Okay,
No, thank you for.
the function
not the
is
people,
not
not the
broken
quality of
as
the
far
people.
as.
Absolutely not. I spent 2 hours over.
Got great professionals and equipment, is we have vacancies, but the vacancies are influenced by the pay rate.
Well said.
And I also
that's why
don't
you're the
want
city administrator.
any
Well said.
residents to inadvertently think that dispatch is not working at, amazing with your calls. That was not what you meant. So.
Wow, I'm sorry if I came across that way. I apologize, Jamie, because I spent time with your team the other day, and I'm really impressed, and they still have a very positive attitude, and you need more people, and it's directly attached to salary.
You're not broken, Jamie.
Sorry, over dramatic on my part. Apologize.
And so how do we look at like the request for assistant city administrator? Our population between 2020 and 2000 and 2020, we over doubled. And I'm sure in the last 5 years, we've probably pushed that again. The workload on the city staff, the workload on the fire equipment, the police cars and stuff like that, it's just going to take a beating if we don't start addressing it now also and getting people in place for the growth that we will inherit. Yeah,
So we, that's a good point to probably discuss. What do we have as far as growth in reality? We're actually sitting at about 13,000 because that salary,
So,
that,
in
excuse
5
me,
years.
that survey did not include Brycewood, which got annexed and built in.
Yeah.
We really don't have that much property to be able to grow as far as residents. It's very nominal. I got to ask that question earlier today by Judge Sakai, 1% a year for 5 years, maybe 5% growth left. There's not that many places inside our city limits. In the ETJ there is, but then they have to apply, then it, due to the rule changes.
It's also
implemented this
that
year, right,
pass-through
has to go
traffic that
through
are-
ESD to be able to approve, which is a challenge. We can no longer just annex, even if.
It's that pass-through traffic, though, that also find themselves in a bind in our city limits that we have to handle.
Correct, which is fortunate, that's also what funds our businesses, right? And increase, which is where we take a look at, where's the ultimate measure for success? When we have that right business income that we are enjoying, that we must work and strive to protect, which we have hired a phenomenal EDC director to achieve those goals, because without that, we lose one small employer, no problem. One on the other end, and it's a significant different story. There's a lot of things that will be a little easier to have these conversations on, say, a mid-year review of budget once we get past January 1. That brings clarity, particularly, again, and I do restate that we can always do in a budget amendment. We can always go back and look at a couple positions. We have some irons in the fire. It's just really kind of an unfortunate timing where grant proposals and announcements come a little bit too late for our particular process here in state of Texas, and we got set up for October 1. But we can address that. Can we take a little bit more money out? Absolutely. Am I against it? Absolutely not. When working with staff, when we take a look at what we proposed and what was proposed and discussed in budget workshops, they took that and addressed it, taking primary account, what are discrepancies we have within our own city? Do we address dispatch? Does dispatch have salary issues that are different than, say, Public Works? And I think the answer there is yes. So do we address that? Police versus fire. Do we address these? Do we want to address them differently? Hey, this is your time to say. And I ask you, don't say, well, let them figure it out, because they did figure out, and this is what they came back, and I agree with their assessment as a first step, and then to be followed up with salary survey, and then work from there.
So the fire and EMS came up with 3.2%?
No, no, no,
No,
no.
Okay, so who came up with 3.2%?
So my understanding of the instruction that I was given was to look at 8 for police and to look at 8 for dispatch. That's the instruction that I was given. I was also pointed towards 3 and then figure out what the rest of that looks like. So I came up with a few different looks to see what the different options with expending the $360,000. When I did that, went back through several iterations, and what has been presented is the 8.8 for police and dispatch, and 3.2 for fire and EMS, and the 5.1 for the rest of the professional staff, outside of the 3 targeted increases. So I did the math according to what I believe the direction given to me was. Now, if the direction that I leave here with tonight is to look at it another way, then I'll do that. If we're looking beyond the $360,000 or the overarching 6%, if we're staying at that, I have several iterations of distribution of that 6%, whether it's the 8 and 3, or whether it's like a 7.4 for one, 7 for another, and then probably a 5 for the rest, or somewhere in that range. I can do all within the current range, but if I'm given additional funds, then I'll come back to you with another outcome. So I'm operating under the instruction of the $200,000 for the capital from the revenue sources moving over into the capital reserve. That's what I'm operating off of. Everything else is the rest of the pot. If we are going to make any other adjustments, or if I'm giving any other instruction, I'll tell you that the teamwork that we have with our senior leaders across the organization, we've walked through different discussions. We'll get to where we need to get in as far as our recommendation. What you all do with that is going to be up to you. But I'll tell you that our senior leaders in this room and those that aren't here, I am super proud of the unity that we've had in the look. I'm super proud of their efforts to make the reductions that I asked for along the way. I am exceedingly happy with Mr., I'll call him affectionately Excel, Daniel Rodriguez, our finance director. Look, this is not easy. I'll tell you that straight up. When it comes to the operational side of the budget, we're locked and sealed. We've made our reduction to get to where we need to be. Okay, when it comes to what's on the screen now regarding the personnel, that is not a fluff ask, that's a real ask. We just don't have all the funds inside the budget and the revenue. If I'm instructed to go a certain way, I will do and present you that. If there is leeway for me to look at it a different kind of way, I will do exactly that, and I'll give you options. And so we're sitting here, all of us, sitting here, just awaiting what are our next steps.
So where did the instructions come from the 360? Did the department heads get all together and say, okay, we'll give you a little bit back and?
No, I'll jump on that grenade. We talked in budget session the first time, what was presented, which was not my presentation, was they just throw 3% and 180.
And that was my initial
Starting
discussion point, without having anything from Bear County, without having these other sources to have confirmation and understanding. So that was me. And I said very clearly that that was nowhere near what I anticipated or wanted.
So by the next one, we came and doubled that, and now we're looking at, 6% raises again. Historically,
The 6% over average of all the departments.
yeah, citywide. Again, at this stage, what we're taking a look at is not department by department. We're looking at how do we balance the budget, how much money we can put in there. Then we figure out how we spread it, which we talked about. And the phrase that Henry used with department heads, do we spread it peanut butter evenly across the bread? Or do we feel some chasms are this deep and some chasms are this deep, so some departments get there? We want to take a look at the reason why I gave some input and direction on that as we're putting together, is because I took a look at disparity between police officers and firefighters, which would be, first level ranks. And there's a $14,000 disparity. It's 22%. So whatever we do, that's something that you take a look at a disparity that great within your department, and you take a look at the department that is being paid 22% less, and you see that they have a crazy amount of turnover. That's something that has to be addressed. So when we spread it out, where do you do it? Do you do it even and then you just propagate that? How did it get that way in the first place? I met with fire, we talked about that, and said, should we be punished because whatever was done in the past to get us in that position? And I can see why that would be felt as a punishment. The other way is that you got the cream of the crop for all these years while everybody else didn't get any, and now do we balance it out? I pose that question and present that entry level or first level ranking should be somewhere on par. Will they always be equal, or will they ever be equal? That's something we have to chip away at. But if you have a 22% disparity, given the same raise to all of them, just propagates that. So my suggestion to you is you take a look at that, at where our problem departments are, dispatch and police, as far as turnover and as far as pay disparity.
So my direction, just a little me, is we add more money to the pot for us to carve out.
I would second that.
Yes.
And I think the money can come out of that 200,000. I don't care how much, I think, and I really do, as much as possible, and I understand the mayor's, and it's a valid discussion about the disparity, but it's really hard, it's hard to see different work centers getting certain percentages, right? And somehow it does feel like punishment, but there is a disparity percentage-wise. I would like to see as much evenness as possible with those areas that are truly, underwater.
So,
Is that a bad way to say underwater?
Not at all.
not a bad way to say it at all, and I think, and I want to make sure that what is seen here is that this is not when you're dealing with budget, it affects people's lives. There's no doubt. But when you're dealing with budget as a city, what you're looking at is the city and the people, services, and overall, and again, long-term survivability. And so as we address these issues, I propose, again, that if we want to add more, that's fine, we can add more. How much a structural deficit do you want to go in as a risk level? I do suggest this, that we can take the amount, like I said earlier, that would be equivalent to the tax raise that you were proposing.
Oh, I
And-
wasn't proposing.
Oh,
just asking.
suggest, or asking or discussing, and we can pull that out of budget or out of, I don't even think we need to pull it out of capital. I still feel that we need to fund that $200,000 a year because we have large purchases coming down the pike from fire.
I just never know when we're gonna spend our unrestricted reserves.
So that's what I'm saying, that's coming, that $200,000 comes from that unrestricted reserve, so we can pull that over. We can do a fund transfer, correct? To fulfill and balance the budget. So if we are increasing our expenditures by including that 200,000, throw another $133,000, we will do a fund transfer out of that. We can apply that, still have a balanced budget, still not have to have any tax raise, still have that actual minus
And then-
proposed rate.
And then next year, we will hopefully.
Salary survey, et cetera.
Revenue and salaries meet at the middle, and we're back to truly balanced.
We can't keep hoping.
Right, but to
Well,
take
there's
us.
a lot, there's a
to-
lot of this you don't know, right? I mean,
So we certainly can take extra money and take it, literally, take it out of savings. Haven't been opposed to that. What I am opposed is massive percentage amounts that create such a large structural deficit that we have to have everything work, and that puts really undue pressure on, and really unrealistic expectations.
I think I've talked too much. That's just my thought. I don't know what the other council members say. And then at what point do we move forward on this?
Well, it seems like we've all agreed that we don't want to raise taxes.
Well,
All the issues that have been discussed this evening, I can support any decrease in taxes. I don't see the need for that. With the issues we have, it's clearly out on the table for the most part. I do support the mayor's idea of getting a survey. I think that's a great idea, especially if the cost is what you're projecting it to be. It seems very reasonable. Why keep relying on other people's data? It may be inaccurate, and us relying on that could really be to the detriment of our employees. At the same time, I think Craig's got some good ideas about bringing in some additional funds that will help shore up those areas that are deficient in their salaries. So I think we have a great opportunity here to help out our employees, the ones that truly need it. You know, I'm not saying that the fire department is not deserving, but it appears from what we know that there's other areas that are more deserving. We need to address that now.
I wouldn't say more deserving. I would say a deficient.
The words may not be correct, but you know what I mean.
I understand, but fire is extremely deserving of the work they do. They are widely loved and appreciated by our community, as is our police. Constantly get remarks to the positive in both those departments, and that is, I know what you mean. Just want to clarify.
Good performance.
They're not broken.
It has to do with the amount, the fair wages that some of these areas or individuals are not getting.
My hope is that whatever, when the next iteration comes out, it's more than 3.2.
So, one point for process is this. Everything that we've talked about can be handled with savings. And again, public comment is correct on this, that we've heard from several sources. Commentary that we've heard up here, we have savings. They're ideally for single item purchases. A lot of that is restricted, but we do have 9 months worth of unrestricted. We can take that out of there and not affect and continue to go with rate. The decrease is just in the the proposed decrease is in the INS, and it counts at $4,200 is what that, for the entire year. So it just matches the INS, which we are required. So my request or suggestion is that the action item will be to approve the tax rate. We approve the tax rate as presented, but somebody would need to make a motion to that. And then to increase salaries for the next iteration, we have the room and the budget to be able to carve out and then just make that presentation. My suggestion is that when we do so, we incorporate a slide about and run that, do a 5-10 year run rate to show where that gets us with some inflationary gauge attached to it, and particularly if it's done in over 2 steps or 1 step or 3 steps, a couple options there.
So again, if I wanted to ask a question about the tax rate, what's the harm in just leaving it where it is?
There's no harm, it's $4,200, right? It's no big deal. It doesn't fix or break anything. I will suggest this, if it comes a point in time where we have to go to the public, our follow through and saying, hey, listen, we reduced the rates as required by law, as what the city and our predecessors committed to, and we follow through. It doesn't materially affect anything on our budget on $11.1 million, $4,200 doesn't. But it does give that ability, if we have to go to the people and we do have to ask a couple years from now, or if we just find out that we have to significantly salary adjust, and that's gonna put us in a budget deficit where we have to do voter approval, we're in a stronger position. Now, if you don't think that's worth it, it's your vote, it's your decision.
Did I not see a graph earlier that showed us to have one of the lowest tax rates?
It is.
Already.
So
Yeah.
then I think we already have justification to our residents to go back if we need to later to increase.
Could, I mean, you look at somebody below us like Fair Oaks, our houses are average of 4,072, and Fair Oaks is just over 700,000 property, home value. So of course their tax rate's lower, they're making more money even, you know, on a lot lower rate because of the value of the homes.
They also don't have dispatcher or fire.
No,
so
absolutely.
They have a lot less expenses too, so it's, again, one of those ones, it's not apples.
No, of course, but I mean, you start looking at the others, you know, around us,
Yeah,
you know, it just,
that is
We need it.
why we need the same.
Yes.
I don't know, you know, it just lowering the tax rate. Also, you know, we can go to the citizens and say, hey, you know, lowering it maybe wasn't the best thing to do. So what we did is we took a pause, took a deep breath this year, and then say next year we got to go to them, hey, it didn't work out taking a pause, but we're going to need a little more now. You know, we tried to take a pause, it didn't work. You know, instead of, well, we lowered it, now we need to go up. Well, why didn't you just keep it the same then, that 1 year, when you took care of the professional staff? So it's.
All right, any more discussion needed on item number 7?
So if I may, I think I'm looking for clarity based on the conversation. One thing that we didn't do tonight, we didn't walk through the budget book, so I do want to mention the budget book. I'm not asking that we walk through it. There's some administrative adjustments that will be done as we move forward. Things like adding the capital once we have a direction on it. That will be added to it. The ancillary budgets will be added fully into that, and some other things. So the budget book is not fully complete at this point, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that we were making the appropriate strides in that document. As it relates to the capital, I don't know if you all plan on coming back to this or you want to aim at making some direction regarding capital, meaning, I don't know if you want to go back to tax rate and then come back to this. I'm looking for direction on capital tonight.
I agree with that. The capital, I support the without the red, and I kind of like everything else. I mean, we need to take care of the equipment. We got to be able to get to the people that are putting us here. If there's an emergency, the equipment's got to function. We can't have broken ambulances. We can't have broken police cars. And then Henry, with the growth of the city and everything that's going on, I really do think, I mean, it's just not an admin for you. It's an admin for the city, basically, is what I was understanding. That's going to help Selena and Michael and everybody else a little bit, right? Or is it just going to
No, I'm
be?
being greedy.
Give me some candy.
No, ultimately, the
Give
reason
me
why,
Hallelujah.
ease up. But no, so the reason why the position that we're asking for on the hallway here, the administrative side, is it is not titled an executive secretary. That would be for me. It is not titled an assistant it's titled an administrative assistant. That would be for me. This position, assistant to the city administrator, is a position that can take on projects. Also, one of the things that I've plainly stated is that as it relates to our payroll, I want to make sure that our HR professional is not doing payroll, because there are some things that I definitely want to get off of that position and Diana's plate, but it is not proper for me to leave it there without all the considerations that I have currently.
With this position, so if Selena was out on vacation, would that position kind of help fill
We're
in
going
a
to
little
stop
bit?
aiming at Selena.
Well, I'm looking at you and I can see her, so. But it would help fill in instead of the phone not being answered for the week she's out. It's still going to function. That person's going to be kind of a fill.
Henry, if I may bail you out here.
Or,
just a
you know,
little
just
bit.
kind of
So.
what exactly they're gonna do.
One of the things, when I first got here,
I have a job description.
when I first got here, we had some financial issues, a lot of financial issues. And we also had some personnel that were operating at way less than capacity. And then we had some job descriptions. We also had some personnel issues, and we had one emergency, and then we had some terminations. And in that process, we ended up operating with one less person and everybody working at much higher percentage of capacity, which made admin much more efficient. We've gotten to the point where there are sufficient issues. We are at probably overcapacity, to tell you the truth. And we have an issue with payroll and accounts payable shouldn't be done by the same person, signing off on their own work, et cetera. So this position would be really an assistant to the entire department, whether they're working on payroll or accounts payable, whether they're working on budget project, whether they're working on this. It'll be assigned a jack of all trades type of position. A better title, if you want, might be assistant to counsel. I don't know what, we have to work on the title. I don't want to say
No, so
assistant
the-
city administrator, because that's not really the right title either.
Well, but it is a proper title in the industry. And so what I don't want is, I don't want confusion about, based on title and expectations from people inside the industry. We can do all kind of fancy things. We can call it a project, person, project manager, blah, blah, blah. I don't think that that's the proper title. Based on what I've looked at and my experience in my current and previous roles, it is the right title. Yes. But I'm at no point, just because the positions are not inside the budget, is only because the funds are not identified to be used. So one of the things that I heard, and I'm not sure if that was direction or only discussion, I heard a number of 133,000 out of the 200 that typically is allocated towards, in past practice, towards capital. I don't know if I wrote that down accurately. I think I did, but I don't know that I've received direction. And I don't know if you all are ready to make those declarations and or votes regarding all things remaining.
I didn't say that number.
I don't have my hearing cheater in.
Doing away with the
So-
entire number, but since we talked about structural deficit, maybe OBE now, but my thought was we take $100,000 off, and we put 100,000 in, a little lower this time this year. That's another $100,000 to raise the salaries as best as we think we can, not truly knowing what's been. That was my recommendation. That helps.
Oh,
I'll say 100.
that extra 33 might have been my inside voice and my
But I-
lack of.
I had actually said that, I was using that based upon the discussion, well, what if we went up to voter tax approval? I'm saying we can go up to that amount and take that out of savings and still put the 200,000 in there and do full structural deficit with that amount. That's an amount which I, again, said in both meetings, okay with a certain amount, as long as it doesn't project too steep of a negative slope on structural deficit. So I am fine with 133 to match that amount to be able to
How does council feel?
spread.
And I don't know that it equals a true structural deficit if it is not contributing or if it is being reduced out of the 200,000.
No, not reducing it. Leave the $200,000 in, because we know we have capital. We know that's not the end of the list. We know what's coming the year after and 3 years after
Well, there'll
that,
always be a list, right.
that we're gonna need to start putting $400,000 and $500,000 a year, and you and I both know that. So we have a lot coming down the pike that are in lines that is not showing on that slide. So we need to be thinking in terms of $400,000 a year, or preparing ourselves for. We can always do a mid-year budget adjustment. It's better if we can plan big scale and start putting it in bigger chunks. I would recommend against minimizing it, because what we're doing is just effectively, and again, another way to look at it is Rob, we don't bring it in, but later on we make a bigger budget adjustment and draw it over. Or we just systematically keep it 200,000, we may eventually increase it to 300,000, especially as we're getting close to our engine or our large purchases. But we can pull a structural deficit of 133. That's at a slope, but it's a slope that we know what's coming on in a couple of years. We know that if we can get the extra positions from Grant, if that comes through. If not, we can address that. We'd have to address that wholly out of structural deficit. That's why I would caution against too big of a slope at this point, because we may have to put that entirety of those positions in structural deficit. And that would be a decision to be made. But we can certainly, if the priority, and I don't disagree, again, facts and numbers and accurate assessment is all I'm caring about here. If we want to push that through and build on a structural deficit, I'm comfortable with that. 133 works.
What do you all think?
200.
I mean,
I know myself, I'd like to see with the position. I'd like to see with the position and then with the capital, just without the red, and see how that brings us down, or how that sits in the budget, and then also brings us down our months of backup there also. Kind of some real numbers that we can look at and digest and study, to see how we're doing, instead of just kind of everything we've talked about in the last 2.5 hours and trying to make a good decision on that.
So what's the direction? We have 100, we've had 200, what?
For the compensation,
No, for the total amount to be able to push
Okay.
over and try to figure out between position, do we want to push that position in this aspect? Administrative assistant,
The position.
administration position, which I believe we're really talking, I think you had put in there about $50,000
Actually, so the,
counting overhead. I mean, it's not a high-paying position.
somewhere close to 67,000 when you look at,
Counting overhead and insurances and everything
Correct.
out there, so actual pay,
total cost.
yeah, total cost. So if you want to include that number, and 33 still for raises,
On top of what you've already carved out for raises.
Yes,
Correct.
this is
And,
plus.
and if insurance comes in, this all gets mucked up if.
insurance is coming in 40%.
Yeah, then it's all
It
a
did-
new discussion.
out of 4
But
years.
I'm hopeful it comes down a little bit less and then that frees up more money for wages. I mean, that's hope, yeah, that's not a course of action, but some things we have to wait with this process to the last minute, which is so frustrating, right? It'd be nice to have this nailed down right now tonight, but.
So
that's
is there
not-
anybody opposed to that, moving that amount in? Is there anybody
is
that,
it the $200,000 that we're talking about total for operations to
your
include?
position and raises, additional raises, so that'll be,
But could you work a scenario that included the fire positions? I know that there may be a grant, but what would it look like if the grant didn't come through?
I could work almost
That would
any
wipe out most of the
scenario
raises.
within any dollar amount. The dollar amount determines what the outcomes could be.
Okay, so 200,000.
So the fire positions combined is over $300,000.
Yeah, see, this is,
All right, so it would take another $300,000 to cover those if we didn't get a grant.
well, under.
I don't-
the-
I don't know
according to
that I
Chief-
have comfort with that. I just, from a structural a true structural deficit position, I don't have comfort with that. I really don't.
Okay. So you're saying those would absolutely have to be grant?
No, I'm not saying, what I'm saying is, if we were going to look at the number of $300,000, I would not be looking at the number of $300,000 plus the $200,000, that's $500,000 as if it is a structural deficit, I don't have the comfort.
Okay.
Now, I will do what you vote.
that's your-
That I will do.
Now, to be fair, we know from the discussions that $300,000 would not be the number. Somebody bantied 53,000, but if you apply a raise, then that.
Well, I got the
amount
numbers
goes
on
up,
the screen.
And then you got the overhead and the insurances and et cetera, so that total cost is still gonna be somewhere around 67, 68. So 210 as opposed to 300,000 in that range. Again, not gonna quibble over those numbers, but the base pay on that was 53.
It shows 52 on the screen. That's what I received from the chief.
Yeah, I apologize, I don't have content tonight.
The base rate is 52,500.
Okay, but that's pre-raise, so then you have to add in the raise and then our overhead and then insurances and then that factor for total cost, that would go to structural deficit.
Right, so also when if chief says, okay, I tell you what, I need an inspector a lot more than I need the positions right now, because that grant doesn't cover inspector, right?
No.
You know,
Right, so right, if we were looking at various scenarios and we were looking at the different challenges, so what's on the screen right now shows right at $400,000 for the 5 positions, all factors considered, right? Again, I'm not necessarily looking, I didn't come in here with an expectation that we walk out of here with all 5 positions. Now, surprise me, okay? But I'll do what you vote, but I don't have that as an expectation. Now, what I think is critically important is that if, like we were talking about, the $200,000 to be distributed across the wages and operation and potential position. If it was a clean $300,000, I think that we can also look to bring on that inspector. Now, if that is a consideration, now, does that cause me to say, a little bit, it does. But can I see my way out of it? I think I can end up finding my way out of that over time. Because I will not, and I've said this very plainly before, I will not recommend a structural deficit that I cannot see my way out of.
I'd like to point out just one thing dealing with numbers. Any structural deficit does come out of unassigned funds, but it comes out of unrestricted unassigned funds. So while we do have 13.9 months of unassigned, we have 9.01 months of unrestricted. That amount is $8.250 million, roughly $8.25 million. So on structural deficit, if we throw in $200,000 for those three positions, another $100 and some thousand plus overhead for inspector, another $133,000 for raises this year, plus all the compound effects of any raise going forward on those amounts. Right now, we got $450,000 of structural deficit, and that is the challenge that I am concerned about.
I can't support that.
Because at that point, you're talking a rapid decrease that is unlikely to be met by anything we have on the board, anything we have even on the long-term board, and anything that EDC gets out there and deals with. We're talking 4, 5, 8 years down the road before that actually becomes manifested.
I look at it this way, Mayor. We're having a hard time right now figuring out a good strategy way forward with people that are working here today. We've never done an unstructured budget deficit like that before. So to start out with a huge one like that scares me hugely. That one, we've never been down that road before, and two, now you got more caring and feeding, right? Manpower is the biggest part of the budget. If you ever look at the pie, it's the biggest part. So we want to continue to add right now when we're still trying to get healthy with the great people we got working for us right now. I don't know. I don't think we can have it all at one time, personally.
Let's start with what we have.
So this goes back, if we take a look at the 133 plus of the amount equivalent to what would have been if we fully raised the tax to the voter approved amount, 133,000. Add the amount that is estimated for the administrative assistant to the admin person, that gives the $200,000 to spread around. The question, then hopefully we get the grant. Positive hopes there, but we can deal with that subsequently if we need to. We continue to work with getting a salary survey, which I agree with you must be done, so we can get some complete numbers, if you will, so we can take a look at what we need to do further. But this still does greatly increase the amount available for raises. Subsequent discussion. Do we take a look at the disparity between police and fire, or is your direction going to be, oh no, it's got to be even across everywhere? Because if that's the case, then we're going to still potentially have a problem with dispatch and police.
We've got to look at the disparity.
So
I would say it's a one-time look.
Yes.
When I ran the numbers at home, it takes 1 year, and then all the entry level, like the early patrols, and the young folks coming on fire and EMS, they'll be even at the end of this year. But that's based on the numbers we talked about earlier in this meeting.
So
And it's a peanut butter spread every year after that. That's the way I saw it. But
well, by my set with Chief Moreland, and by just, if we took a look at that survey itself, those numbers, Chief, you even told me, fire is only, even though it was 23.9 on average across it, fires was only 11.
12.8.
Huh?
12.8,
Okay.
if you want to get technical. 12.8.
All right, we looked at a couple of those ones that are, that's a different number we said before, but that's fine. Either way, it's half of what the other departments are. So again, if we're taking a stab at this, there may need to be several years. The point is that we're not dealing with this as multi-year contract. We're dealing with this, we have to address this, take a salary survey, take a snapshot of where we are, and next year, and continue to move and refine. You can't just line up the boat from New York and aim at England and push it. You kind of got to make some adjustments along the way. So I say that to say, let's make a good stab, but I don't want to close the doors to any possible future adjustments because we don't know what next year brings or the data shows.
That 133 could bring them up to 5.1, and it's doable.
Okay, so if you bring them
I'm
to
just
five.
saying, the money, with that money we're saying, we're talking about putting, borrowing it out of our unrestricted reserve funds, there's enough there to bring them up this year. We do the study, and then we see what's what. We see what's right and what's wrong.
So, in other words.
That's a possibility too.
Okay, so you bring the disparity from 22% to 20%, and have our police officers continue to make.
No, they'll still get their 8, you can.
Right, 8 and 5 doesn't change the disparity, it brings the disparity from 22.3 to 19.8, and then leaves them there. So the question is.
Without having a spreadsheet here and doing the what is,
Okay.
I'm armless. I have no weapon, so.
This is a challenge, go ahead.
So,
How about we let the city administrator run the numbers and come back?
We shall
with
do
the
that.
scenario?
But all of this can be done without changing what was proposed on tax rate. Are we comfortable finishing discussion on this and going back to making a motion for tax rate?
I'm ready.
Anybody not ready? Okay.
We gotta wait for council.
Councilmember
yeah,
Sims.
see if she has any follow-up real quick. You're good on asking on the compensation, kind of what, almost everything? Yeah, you are.
I'm not, so we're at 202 still,
Because, yeah, the number you're working on was 360,
moving capital to
and then he broke that down.
Okay, Jen, we're at the point of asking if everybody's comfortable with closing discussion on this. We can go back. We have discussed at this point or come to I don't want to say conclusion, I'll say direction, at least at this time, for next meeting's discussion, to add $200,000 a year out of savings into the budget, and continue to have the capital improvements for raises and the admin position. This all can be done without changing what was proposed rate. All that is supported by that. Do you have any reason to disagree with ceasing discussion and then moving back to voting on the tax rate on item number 6?
That's fine.
Okay. In that case, we'll close item number 7.
Are- Disregard, go ahead. I apologize.
That's all right. At this time, because we had presentation and discussion, what's left on item number 6 is to take action. So we'll need a motion, a second, to take action on the setting of the proposed tax year 2025 ad valorem property tax rate.
And we have to do a roll call, right?
it has to
It
be.
has to be with roll call. Looking for a motion. And that motion will be to have the tax rate set at what? The proposed amount is listed?
Yeah, proposed amount
Okay.
is listed.
Proposed amount is listed. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. Roll call vote for approval and setting of the proposed tax rate, tax year 2025 ad valorem property tax rate for .3097999. Councilmember Tato.
Yes.
Councilmember Solons.
Nay.
Councilmember Sanders.
Yes.
Councilmember
McCollum?
Nay.
Councilmember Russell?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, we do not have a tax rate. Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion for a tax rate?
I'll make a motion for setting the tax rate for the upcoming fiscal year, basically leaving it at 31 cents.
Okay, we have a motion for maintaining ad valorem tax rate at 0.310000. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
Second, okay, roll call vote, starting with motion maker. Councilmember McCollum.
Yay.
Councilmember Russell.
Yay.
Member Cato.
Yay.
Councilmember Stones.
Yay.
Councilmember Sanders.
Nay.
I'm sorry, what? No? That's a nay. So,
Say again, for clarity?
Claire, did you say
Yay or nay?
I said no.
No.
9.
Councilmember Stones?
Yay.
Yay. Okay, so we have 4-1. Okay, motion approves. Property tax rate will be set at 0.310000. All right, at this point, we have discussion and action, like a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 8 as written, which will be setting budget hearing and tax rate hearing if required, which we do not need
We
We
will.
will need a public hearing now.
for the public hearing for the budget, but not for tax rate.
The budget always needs a public hearing. We'll need a public hearing now for the tax rate.
That's great.
So this is simply for setting the calendar. Do we have a motion and a second to discuss and take action on item number 8 as written?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Motion by Russell, second by Cato. Any discussion? This is simply just setting calendar dates?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anybody with discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving item number 8 as written, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Motion carries. Which brings us to our final number. We have a presentation discussion on the draft fiscal year 2026 municipal fee schedule. Are we prepared with that, or does that need to be pushed to?
No, sir, I can go real quick.
Okay.
It's real easy, right? So ultimately, in the next meeting, we will have fee schedule information for your viewing and for you to walk through. As an expectation, you should anticipate that there will be items related to events and marketing, knowing that we did go up in the rate that we pay in our agreement. We have not changed any rates for any of our participants out at Marketplace. Also, on the fire side, some permitting fees, some state license facility fees, and some service fees are anticipated, as well as, stand by, that's, okay, that is the right email. As well as anticipating Public Works will likely have something for your viewing and your consideration. Outside of that, it will not be too much more excessive. So I yield at this time. You'll see it next meeting.
Any thoughts, discussion, questions? Okay. That is the case. We are ready to adjourn, and we will adjourn. It is 9:32. Thank you for attending.